Gender. There's much talk about gender these days. There's transgender, male, female, gender binary, gender non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer. What does it all mean? And then there's the question, what is your pronoun? For me, that's not a one-word answer. It's a story. And so today, I'm hoping that all of you will go on a journey with me, my gender story, and we'll think about your own journey and your own gender. Because gender is something we don't have much choice about. It's assigned to us at birth. I grew up in a very small, almost tiny town in the foothills of the Allegheny Mountains. There, in my family, strict gender roles. My dad worked, my mom stayed home. My dad was violent, my mom cried. My dad drank, my mom cooked. For me, I didn't really think a lot about gender when I was a kid. I wore jeans, I wore boys' clothes mainly, and I loved to shoot guns. I won a sharpshooter medal in high school. I loved to fish, and I could gut my own fish. And I really, really enjoyed baking blueberry muffins. And one year, my blueberry muffins went to State Fair. And then I met Big Al. Now, Big Al, she was our softball coach. She was about 6 feet tall. She had a wallet. She had keys that hung off her jeans. And I knew there was something about Big Al that I wanted to be like. And I thought, it's possible. And then, 6th grade, otherwise known as the Battle of the Yellow Dress. And so my mom decided for my 6th grade graduation that she would make me a dress, handmade. Went to the store, drove 1 hour to the big city, picked out a pattern, got the fabric, and made this beautiful yellow and white checked dress. I hated it. I hated everything about that yellow dress. And I said, I am not wearing that yellow dress. In my big 10-year-old voice, no. And then I said, Big Al would never have to wear a yellow dress. And that argument made it much worse. And I lost. And I had to walk across that stage in that yellow dress, flared out, ashamed, embarrassed, and with absolutely no words to express how I felt or why that dress was so wrong for me. I decided that I didn't want to stay in that small town. And there weren't very many avenues, and my father had been in the Army for 20 years. And so I decided that I would really like to be a medic, and I would like to help people. So I filled out all the forms and got approved and went to the center in Buffalo, New York. I got on that big Bluebird bus all by myself, went into that huge building, stayed in a motel by myself for the first time. I was so excited. I had done really well on some of the tests, and then I went and I passed the physical, and I passed all of the exercises and the strengths tests, and then they pulled me out of line, and they said, you need to come over here into this office with the psychologist. We have some concerns. And so that psychologist started asking me questions, which seemed really kind of odd. Do you shave your legs? I was like, sometimes. Do you shave your armpits? Do you ever wear dresses? And so what it turned out is they thought that I was a man or a boy trying to be a woman. I didn't get into the Army. They didn't take people like me. And I got the distinct impression that I wasn't welcome most places. But there was one place where I found that I could go, and that was the bars. In particular, the gay bars. At 18, I set off on a journey that would take me very low because I didn't feel like I was welcome anywhere else. And so what happened is it got really bad. And then one day, my friends dropped me at the emergency room because I was having the delirium tremors because I was trying to stop drinking. And from there became a journey to sobriety and a journey of recovery. During that time, I spent about 5 years on welfare and was eventually placed in a welfare to work program. Now, my friend, she got placed at Meals on Wheels, so she got free lunch. And I wasn't so excited because I got placed at a legal aid organization. And I thought, boring. And also, I had to be the receptionist. So they told me I had to wear dresses and skirts, and I hated every minute of it. And I also was not very good at it because I was angry and didn't like people. And so I did that for 9 months. I had a job coach who came and helped me with the social aspects of being in an office, and I didn't think people like me could be in offices. And as I was leaving to move on from that program, one of the attorneys said to me, "Have you ever thought about going to law school?" And I said, "No, never." And I walked away. And so over the next 2 years, I got a job cooking in a kitchen, which I loved. I got to just wear whites, the cook's uniform. I didn't have to think about it. And that's where I thought people like me, who were genderqueer, who were butch, who were different, belonged, in kitchens and in factories and in construction. I didn't see anybody who looked like me as lawyers, as doctors, as professionals. And so I went to law school and I finished, and I was at a hearing, and I was putting the chairs away for the hearing, and I was wearing a dress. And the attorney on the other side, he said to me, "Sir," and I thought, I'm wearing a freaking dress. And he said, "Sir, put those chairs over there, sir." And I realized he thought that I was a man in a dress trying to be a woman. And what I realized in that moment, that would be the last time that I ever wore a dress. And I decided that I would stop trying to fit in a box. And what to me is really interesting is that when people think I'm a man, a white, straight man, I can move through the world in an incredible way. I can move through quickly, I can get through airports, people open doors for me, and they think that I am the expert. And when I'm a woman, things move a little slower. When people respond to me that way, I get interrupted a lot more, and people are a little bit gentler, maybe a little quieter. And when people aren't sure what I am, it's very awkward. And so I think about that, and I think about why we do that. And the thing is, I am the exact same person in each of those situations. Same person. So I was born Martha Sue, and when I decided not to wear a dress anymore, I also decided that I would change my name. When I was a kid, I was called Merf, because no one could really say Martha Sue when they were little, and I hated it. And so I decided to change my name. I called up my mom and said, "I'm going to change my name." And she said, "You always hated that name. My world is falling apart." She burst into tears and hung up. Because it was kind of about her. And then I called my sister who's an evangelical Christian who I love with all my heart. And I didn't know what she would think. And I said, "I'm going to change my name." And she said, "To Merf?" And I said, "Well, yeah, not Sally." And she said, "You've always been Merf. You are Merf." And so I did it. And then my sister was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And it had spread to her sentinel node, and she found out that she had the BRCA gene, and that I had an 85% chance of having breast cancer, up to 85%, because I had the same gene. I was tested. And so I had to make a decision whether or not to have a mastectomy, because that was recommended, and to have my ovaries out, called a really fun name, oophorectomy. So I decided to go with the oof, and also to have a mastectomy. But the really, really difficult decision for me was whether or not to have reconstructive surgery, because most women did. And I decided not to do that. And to me, that felt like a real risk. But I did it, and I moved forward in my life with a body that felt really comfortable to me. And another decision I made was that I never really felt like a man, and I never really feel like a woman. And so I decided not to take testosterone and not to step into a box, but to continue to live in between those boxes. And I think that if all of us are willing to live just a little bit in between, that the world can be better. And what can we do to make that change? Well, first, I think we need to notice. We need to notice that one of the first things we see about people is their gender, that we do it almost automatically, and that we treat people differently because of their gender. To just notice what we wear, how we treat our bodies, how we think about ourselves, based on something that we had no choice over. Second, reflect. Really think about, why do we need gender? Talk about it, reflect. What is your gender story? What would you say if you really, truly had a choice about gender? What would that look like for you, for your children, for your friends, for your family? What would that look like at work? How would the world be different? And third and last is to act. There are actions we can take. But first we have to notice and reflect before we can take action. I can't tell you what to do. It's going to be uncomfortable and slightly awkward. We have some words, but we don't have all the words. We still have male and female. And sometimes we have more pronouns, we have they. But we need to change our language, and we need to be willing to be awkward. As far as specific actions, there's no rule book. There's no magic formula. What I will say is some of the things that you could think about is, what kind of restrooms are in your workplace? What kind of restrooms are in the places that you go? Could you change them? Are you open to other people's gender? And if you have your pronouns on your email at work, do you have a parenthetical that says why they're there? Do you know why they're there? Because I think we need to take this journey together. And I am so full of hope and possibility because my mom, she sent me this Christmas gift a few years ago, and I was really concerned because most years I got something yellow. She figured that was my color. But what I've realized is that my mom is really a hero. What she was trying to do is she was trying to save me. She was trying to save me from the world's hate and the world's rage. And she knew someone like me would have a really hard time surviving in the world. Because she knew what I didn't know about Big Al. She knew what Big Al's life was like, and she knew what people said about Big Al and how they treated her and how hard her life was. And my mom didn't want that for me. What she knew was a box. And so to try to save me, she gave me everything that she could to do that. But that holiday, when I opened up that box, it wasn't yellow, it was red. And it had the Incredible Hulk on it. And when I pulled it out, it was a men's necktie. And my mother, she got me. And I think that we can all get each other if we're willing to move beyond the F, beyond the M, beyond pink, and beyond blue, to step outside the box. Thank you.